Hi Kaz, how are you?
Hi Lou, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks Kaz.
Good.
Kaz, there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about today. Give us some insight into investments and things going on in the media. Firstly, airlines. So in early May, Warren Buffett announced he had sold all his airline holdings. Do we have any holdings in airlines? And if so, which and why?
It's a really good question, Leo. And yes, we do have holdings in airlines. And actually, Warren Buffett's sale was very high profile, of course, because he's such a high profile investor. And he's someone who we admire, of course, as a very successful long-term investor. He sold about $4 billion worth of his airline stock back in early May, or that was when the reporting was done. So probably he sold it in April. Now he'd have captured a lot of the losses that happened to the airlines, with some of them off over 70% since the start of the crisis. And that was his US airlines. He had 4 of the biggest US airlines. We don't have the US airlines. That's not to say we wouldn't look to invest in them now. But what we do have is an investment in Japan Airlines and in IAG, which is the parent company of British Airways. Now, we've owned the Japan Airlines position for some time, and actually it was one of the most defensive airlines into the coronavirus crisis. So when everything else was falling 70%, it declined still, but it was less than 40%, which is much more defensive than its peer group. It worked quite hard in the early part of the crisis to build up cash, make sure it was maintaining its liquidity, and also then, like everyone else, has been cutting its dividend and of course paring back its capital costs. IAG, we also held a small position before the crisis. Willie Walsh was very vocal early on in the coronavirus crisis about the fact that he did not want government support. And in fact, many have seen the recent developments with the battles with the unions and the contracts with some of the pilots and the crew as an opportunity for Walsh maybe to beat the unions in a period of opportunity. Now, however you look at it, Willie Walsh has been presiding over an airline that is flush with cash, and that was what appealed to us, that there was not going to be a liquidity problem with British Airways, with IAG, no matter what was happening to other airlines. And of course there are other airlines in the UK that have been less well prepared for this crisis. Certainly Flybe are very well publicised problems before the crisis, and they've got the administrators in, and of course Virgin was well known as not probably having enough cash to not need a government bailout. So we went for some more secure airline companies, if you like, and we initiated a new position in IAG in our multi-asset funds actually in March. So buying pretty close to what has now proved to be the recent bottom in the market, and that has rebounded really strongly. So the rebound in airlines it's in the 30% since the low point. So that's gone up really well and been a big contributor to our returns since that low point on the 23rd of March.
Sure. Kaz, thanks. Minibonds. There's been some news about minibonds lately, and it's a subject I've heard you speak about several times. So I wondered if you could quickly remind us what minibonds are and give us your take on what's been happening in the media.
Yeah, so a mini bond. Now I did speak about this, you're right, at the client seminar just in December, just gone. And the reason I raised it then was that the FCA, our regulator, had come out to say they were banning the marketing of mini bonds to retail clients. They are people, the man on the street. And the reason that was really important is because mini bonds have been advertised to the average investor in a variety of forms over the years, not least through the broadsheet newspapers where you could fill in a form and get this attractive yield they were offering. They're effectively loans made by companies looking to raise cash. So you loan them the money and they pay you a coupon, a rate of interest on that money. So the loans are made by you to the company. So the company is borrowing the money to fund its growth or part of its operations, or whatever it's looking to fund. These mini bonds were so attractive to investors and have been recently because they've offered really crazy high yields. And when I say crazy high, I mean like 8%. So if somebody's offering to pay you 8% on your money at the moment, you've got to ask why. And this was the thing I wanted to communicate in our seminar last year, Leo. And it's also something I communicated in our seminar in 2013. This is how long it's been going on for. That these yields look amazingly attractive, and some of them back in 2013 were offering up to 15%, but they look attractive for a reason. They're incredibly high risk. So these loans that you make to these companies are high risk because those companies might not make it. They might not be around.
So, sorry, Kaz, what's happening now?
Right, well, now this week, the FCA has come out and said that temporary ban on marketing is going to be made permanent. They are not going to allow mini bond issuers to advertise directly to the retail investor. So no more broadsheet filling a form in even on an internet website. You can't just go and do that now. Whereas before, I was getting leaflets through my door, and I'm sure many other people did, offering these high 8% yields, fill in this form, send off your money, £5,000. Oh, and by the way, most of these mini bond providers lock in your money. So you can't get it out until the end of a period of time. So they're high risk because of the lack of liquidity. You can't get your money out. They're high risk because of the lack of transparency, and they are unregulated. So although the FCA is involved in the marketing of them, the actual product is not regulated. So this is not a good idea for retail investors to be invested in, no matter how attractive these yields. So it's great news that they've made the ban permanent this week. And so that has been the good news, and it is a move to protect the retail investor, which is a real positive.
Excellent, Cass, thanks. Moving on. Can you tell us anything about the scandal surrounding Wirecard, the German payment processor and financial services provider? We've been hearing a lot about them in the news recently.
Yeah, this is such an interesting case, and this is not over. This is going to run for a little while longer while the investigations occur. But it's come out into the news this week. And it's on the back of quite a long-running investigation by the FT, actually, who I think early, about 2015, wrote an article about potential fraud in the business. But some of the rumblings on potential fraud were going back to 2008. The company's been around for a while. It does software associated with internet payments. It's also got a bank, which, by the way, has been offering quite high rates on deposits recently. Again, you've got to ask why. Anyway, it turns out they have mislaid almost $2 billion. So the CEO resigned, I think, last Friday. He's now been arrested for fraud. There's a lot of concerns over it because after the FT's original investigation and publishing it in 2015, the Ernst & Young they gave it a clean bill on its audit, so a clean audit. And that is a problem because, of course, then investors go on the back of that audit and people piled in. This stock became part of the DAX 30 index. That's the top 30 companies in Germany. We're not talking small fry here. It became huge. I think at its height, it was worth 26 billion in terms of the market cap of the company. So this is not a small company that's going under. It filed for insolvency this week. This is a large company that's affected the German financial markets hugely, not least because of people feeling that regulators in Germany should have had a hold on this, and that the auditors should have had a hold on this. But €2 billion that was supposed to be banked in the Philippines is not in the Philippines, and it has been said that it probably doesn't exist. And this is quite a big scandal for the European stock markets this week, Leo.
Kaz, does this impact go anywhere near or close to Courtiers funds, clients' investments?
We haven't got any direct investments in Wirecard. Some UK fund managers do have, actually, and there have been people shorting the stock as well, trying to benefit from it falling in price. We don't have any direct investments at all. We would have had some small exposure through a larger position in many European companies that would have been very well diversified, and it would have been a fraction of that, but it has not had a material impact on Courtiers funds at all. It is now obviously insolvent, and there are some private shareholders who have got direct stakes in that will potentially lose quite a lot. But this scandal will run for a little while they do the investigations, Leo.
I suspect you'll keep an eye on that and we'll hear some more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much for the insight. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please let us know. We'll put them to the right people. Kaz, talk to you soon.
Thanks, Leo.
Take care.